my girlfriend, 25 years old, and I have been together for 6 years, and we're talking about getting married someday when all of this happened. I am deeply in love with her and want to know how to love her better while keeping myself sane about this. Some backstory. We met in college where we were both loners but connected over our love of running. Both of us are super into every aspect of this hobby, even more than a lot of normal people who run. Feel free to judge, but for the purpose of this post, I gotta get into it all. Basically, we were both obsessed with types of shoes, the exact running times on certain local trails, niche techniques, water bottles, etc. Literally everything. And I'd met other people who liked running before, but not in the obsessive way I did. When I met her, it was like finding the other half of my soul immediately, as cheesy and cliche as that is. We built our relationship first as running buddies, and our entire relationship blossomed from there. We would go running together every day and race each other in some of the most highly competitive races I've ever run. I think we've only ever skipped a handful of days every once in a while in our entire relationship. Our shared hobby is our life, and she is my whole life. We have so many memories on specific trails, and whenever we used to go out, we'd talk about the latest news related to our shared interest. New sneakers that were getting released, Reddit posts we'd seen on the local subreddit about our favorite trails, new water bottles we wanted to try. Crazy obsessive stuff like that. Fast forward to the present. My girlfriend was in a massive car accident 8 months ago and is paralyzed from the waist down. She is in a wheelchair, and it's been very hard on both of us. All of the hard, scary stuff is over, but we're trying to settle back into our life, and literally everything is different. For one, we can't go running together anymore, and we might not be able to ever again. She is in physical therapy, and the hope is that one day she will be able to run again, though not for a long time. I miss this aspect of our relationship so much. We are still partners in the sense that we share certain finances, and we have been learning how to go out on dates, even having to navigate all the accessibility checks around her wheelchair. But the thing we built our relationship on is gone, or at least won't return for a long time. We've tried going to some of the easier trails, and she wheels beside me while I walk. And it was nice the first few times, but I keep thinking how much it's not the same. And since everything happened, it bums her out to talk about anything related to our shared hobby. So we just don't anymore. This whole thing makes me feel terrible and sad and frustrated. Before all of this, we had the best communication in the world, but I don't know how to talk to her about this without making her feel like I'm blaming her or like she's not enough. I don't love her any less. I guess my question is, how do I approach this with her? Do I bring it up at all? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. It's okay to mourn aspects of your relationship that can't happen anymore now. That's a common experience for disabled people. My advice would be, 1. Don't talk about the future when she gets back to running, because that might never happen, and signals you don't accept her. Now 2. Process this loss with someone other than your girlfriend. Your feelings around this are valid, but she should not be the one to comfort you in this. She feels horrible about it already. Seek support from your friends or family. 3. Realize that all of the aspects of her personality that made her so fun to run with are still there. She's still determined, still a geek about things, maybe she still enjoys sports, just adaptive sports. She likes a challenge, whatever. Those are things that can transfer to a new hobby easily. Maybe it's time for the two of you to branch out and find a new thing to bond over. Maybe do a little series of tryouts where you do something new every week. Comment 2. This is tragic, I'm sorry for you both, OP. I don't have any advice, but I wanted to give my condolences and also a happy story. My uncle was an athlete throughout his life, but in college he was drunk and fell off a roof at a party and broke his neck. He was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, but he ended up falling in love. They had 3 beautiful children, and he had a rich life with a great career, a supportive family, and was the best parallel parker I know. I know when the accident happened, he was extremely depressed, but life has a way of moving on, and so will yours. You love her deeply and are trying to make it work, so it will work. Good luck to you both. And make sure she's also getting the emotional support she needs. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. 2 weeks ago, I decided to bring up the topic with my girlfriend. I was really nervous about it, but I knew we couldn't keep avoiding the elephant in the room. One evening after dinner, I gently started the conversation. I told her how much I missed our runs and how I felt like we were drifting apart because we weren't sharing that part of our lives anymore. I made sure to emphasize that I didn't love her any less and that I just wanted to find a way to reconnect. She listened quietly, and I could see the pain in her eyes. She admitted that she missed running too, more than anything. She said she felt like she had lost a part of herself, and that it was hard for her to talk about it because it reminded her of what she couldn't do anymore. We both ended up in tears, but felt like a breakthrough. We promised each other that we would find new ways to connect and keep our relationship strong. The next day, we decided to try something new. We signed up for a local adaptive sports program. They offer a variety of activities for people with disabilities, including wheelchair racing. My girlfriend was hesitant at first, but I encouraged her to give it a try. We went to our first session together, and it was amazing to see her smile again. She was a natural, and I could see the spark in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. As she got more involved in wheelchair racing, I started to feel a bit left out. I didn't want to admit it, but I missed our old routine. I tried to be supportive and attended all her races, cheering her on from the sidelines. But deep down, I felt like I was losing her to this new world that I couldn't be a part of. I didn't want to burden her with my feelings, so I kept them to myself. One evening after one of her races, we were sitting on the couch and she could tell something was bothering me. She asked me what was wrong, and I finally opened up about how I was feeling. I told her that I was proud of her and loved seeing her happy, but I missed the connection we had when we were both running together. She took my hand and said she understood. She suggested that we find a new hobby that we could both enjoy together, something that didn't involve running or racing. We spent the next few days brainstorming ideas and finally decided to try tandem cycling. We found a local group that organized rides for people with disabilities and their partners. Our first ride was a bit awkward, but we quickly got the hang of it. It felt amazing to be out on the trails together again, even if it was in a different way. We started going on regular rides, and it became our new shared activity. As we settled into this new routine, I noticed that our communication improved. We started talking more openly about our feelings and fears. I learned that she was worried about being a burden to me, and that she felt guilty for not being able to run with me anymore. I reassured her that she was never a burden, and that I loved her no matter what. We both realized that we needed to be more honest with each other and not let our fears and insecurities drive a wedge between us. During one of our rides, she opened up about something that had been bothering her for a while. She confessed that she had been feeling pressured to get better quickly, not just for herself, but for me as well. She felt like she was letting me down by not being able to run again. I was shocked and saddened to hear this. I told her that I never wanted her to feel that way, and that I was proud of her progress no matter how long it took. We both agreed to take the pressure off and focus on enjoying our time together, whether it was cycling, going on dates, or just hanging out at home. In the midst of all this, we had a surprising twist. One evening while we were having dinner, she casually mentioned that she had been in touch with an old friend from college. This friend had also been in a serious accident and was now an advocate for people with disabilities. They had reconnected through social media, and he had been a great source of support for her. I was happy that she had someone to talk to who understood what she was going through, but I couldn't help feeling a bit jealous. I didn't want to admit it, but I was worried that she might be developing feelings for him. A few days later, she invited him over for dinner. I was nervous about meeting him, but I wanted to be supportive. When he arrived, I was surprised by how friendly and genuine he was. We ended up having a great evening, and I could see why my girlfriend valued his friendship. As the night went on, I realized that my jealousy was unfounded. He was just a friend who understood her struggles in a way that I couldn't. I felt a sense of relief and gratitude that she had someone like him in her life. As we continued to navigate our new normal, I started to reflect on our past. I remembered the early days of our relationship when we would spend hours talking about our favorite trails and running techniques. I realized that our love for running had brought us together, but it wasn't the only thing that defined our relationship. We had built a strong foundation of trust, communication, and love that could withstand any challenge. One evening, while we were sitting on the porch, she shared a story from her childhood that I had never heard before. She told me about how she had always been determined and resilient, even as a kid. She had faced many challenges growing up, but she never let them hold her back. Hearing this made me realize just how strong and amazing she was. It also made me see that our relationship was built on more than just our shared hobby. We had a deep connection that went beyond running. In the end, we found a new way to connect and strengthen our relationship. It wasn't always easy, and there were times when we both felt lost and frustrated, but we learned to be more open and honest with each other, and we found new ways to enjoy our time together. Our love for each other grew stronger, and we became even more committed to supporting each other through thick and thin. Thanks for reading. Aita for telling my wife to move out after she admitted she fell out of love with me. Married for 6 years, together for 8. Overall, we have had a happy marriage, have had common goals for what we want to do in life, and we even started working together a year or so into our relationship. But something happened at the start of this year. I got a promotion which required me to work long and irregular hours, which left us less time together. Maybe one day a week that we could go out and do things. I felt like we were making a concerted effort to spend time together, and I called her on my breaks and when I was on the way home. Stuff like that. Fast forward to 2 months ago. I noticed she has been very invested in her online friend group that she games with and had been spending long hours with them, even on days that we were supposed to spend time together. Intimacy has mostly dried up, save for a lone, isolated incident where she became overwhelmed by horniness while at work and felt like she wanted to pursue the nearest guy. She rushed home and we had great intimacy. But something lurked in the back of my mind about this incident. We haven't had any sort of intimacy since this event, which was maybe 3 months ago. Anyway, 2 months ago, we end up having a fight where I, in essence, say that she doesn't really want to be in this relationship. And that's when she drops the bombshell that she had fallen out of love with me over the last month or so. The timetable for falling out of love is nebulous at this time, but it's most certainly this year. I was devastated because I knew something was happening, but we had been so close and so in sync for years that I didn't even consider that she had lost her feelings for me. She said she still cares for me dearly, but sees me as sort of like a neighbor or roommate or something. I spiraled into depression and decided to devote every waking hour to saving our relationship. We took a week off work and went on many dates, and I tried everything I knew to do to reconnect. At our peak, she said she loved me like a family member, but that she just wasn't in love or romantic love. So a couple days ago, I'm like, okay, maybe you should get your own place for a while. I'm still very much in love and attracted and care so much for her, but the sting of rejection every time I look in her eyes is extremely painful. She had said at various points over the last couple months that she had a longing for something new, somewhere new, an adventure. That's the key reason for me to ask her to leave. I'm not going to trap her in a marriage where she knows she can't fulfill her end of things, and she knows I'm unhappy. My question is this. My family and friends have been disagreeing with our plans moving forward and said we should exhaust all efforts before moving into a break or separation territory. I feel like I'm smothering her with my needs and desires while she lives here. Do I have my head up my behind? Or is this just kind of how marriages go after a time? My parents had long years of lovelessness and eventually divorced. Maybe things just eventually morph into a friendship over time. And I'm the strange one for still wanting intimacy. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I wasn't married, but I was in a 12-year-long relationship that I decided to end once she told me she wasn't attracted to me anymore. She still loved me, and I loved her because we were together for so long and we really were best friends. But that was it. We were just friends by the end. And I was still attracted to her, but I couldn't force her to be with me. It is true what they say. If you truly love someone, let them go. It will hurt you, but not as much or as long as sticking with a relationship where you're not wanted anymore. You deserve to be in a relationship where you feel loved the way you need to. You will find someone, I assure you. Comment 2. Bro, you're missing the point here. She's checked out. Game over. Pack it up and move on. You're clinging to a sinking ship, my dude. Sure, try to save it if you want, but it sounds like she's already got one foot out the door. You're not being dumb for wanting intimacy. That's normal. But you are being dumb if you think you can force her to stay in love with you. Let her go and focus on yourself. You deserve someone who actually wants to be with you. And seriously, stop trying so hard to save something that's already dead. Life's too short for that nonsense. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all of this. So, after I suggested she get her own place, things moved pretty quickly. She found a small apartment across town and moved out within a week. The first few days were rough. I kept expecting her to walk through the door, but it was just me and the silence. I tried to keep busy with work, but the long hours that once felt like a burden now seemed like a blessing, keeping my mind off the emptiness at home. About a week after she moved out, I got a call from her. She sounded happier, more relaxed. She told me she had started exploring the city more, meeting new people, and even joined a local hiking group. I could hear the excitement in her voice, and while it hurt to know she was finding joy without me, I was also relieved that she was doing well. But then, things took a turn. One evening, I got a message from one of our mutual friends. They had seen her out with a guy from her online gaming group. Apparently, they had been spending a lot of time together. And it wasn't just as friends. This hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt betrayed even though we were technically separated. It made me question everything. Had she been emotionally involved with him while we were still together? I confronted her about it the next day. She admitted that she had developed feelings for him, but insisted that nothing physical had happened while we were still living together. She said she didn't want to hurt me, and that's why she hadn't told me earlier. I didn't know what to believe. The trust we had built over 8 years seemed to crumble in an instant. Around this time, my work started to suffer. I couldn't focus, and my performance dropped. My boss noticed and called me in for a meeting. I explained what was going on, and while he was sympathetic, he made it clear that I needed to get my act together. The promotion that had once seemed like a dream now felt like a curse, adding pressure to an already unbearable situation. Meanwhile, my family and friends were still pushing for us to work things out. They didn't know about the new guy, and I didn't have the heart to tell them. They kept suggesting counseling, saying that we owed it to ourselves to try everything before giving up. I felt torn between their advice and my own sense of betrayal and hurt. One night, I decided to go through some old photos and messages, trying to understand where things had gone wrong. I found a series of messages between us from about a year ago where she had expressed feeling lonely and disconnected. I had brushed it off at the time, thinking it was just a phase. Looking back, I realized that was probably the beginning of the end. It was a painful reminder of how I had failed to see the signs. As the weeks went by, I tried to focus on myself. I started going to the gym, picked up a new hobby, and even went out with friends more often. But no matter what I did, the emptiness lingered. I missed her, missed us. I kept replaying our last few months together, wondering if there was something I could have done differently. Then, about a month after she moved out, I got another call from her. She sounded different, more serious. She told me she had decided to move to another city with the guy from her gaming group. She said she needed a fresh start, away from all the memories and the pain. I felt like my heart was being ripped out. It was one thing to be separated, but knowing she was leaving for good was a whole new level of hurt. I tried to keep my composure, but after the call, I broke down. It felt like the final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I couldn't help but think about all the plans we had made, the future we had envisioned together. It was all gone now, replaced by uncertainty and loneliness. In the midst of all this, I started to reflect on my own actions and choices. I realized that my long hours at work had played a significant role in our drift. I had prioritized my career over our relationship, thinking that providing for us was enough. But I had neglected the emotional and intimate aspects of our marriage, and that had cost me dearly. I also thought about my parents' marriage and how they had stayed together for years despite being unhappy. I didn't want to end up like them, living in a loveless relationship out of obligation. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had failed, that I hadn't done enough to save what we had. As I navigated through these emotions, I started to see a therapist. It was a difficult step, but I knew I needed help to process everything. The therapist helped me understand that while I had made mistakes, I wasn't solely to blame for the breakdown of our marriage. Relationships are a two-way street, and both of us had contributed to the distance that had grown between us. In one of our sessions, I opened up about my fears and insecurities. I realized that a part of me had always felt inadequate, that I wasn't enough for her. This had driven me to work harder to prove my worth, but in doing so, I had lost sight of what truly mattered. It was a painful realization, but it also gave me a sense of clarity. As I continued therapy, I started to piece together the fragments of my life. I reconnected with old friends, spent more time with family, and slowly began to rebuild my sense of self. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the weight of it all felt unbearable. But I kept pushing forward, one step at a time. In the end, I learned that healing is a slow and often painful process. There are no quick fixes or easy answers. It's about facing the harsh realities, accepting the mistakes, and finding a way to move forward. While the future remains uncertain, I know that I have the strength to navigate through it, no matter what comes my way. Thanks for reading. Aita for refusing to accept my husband's racist friend's apology. My husband wants me to befriend his discriminatory best friend. For context, I am black, and my husband and his friend are white. This questionable friend has been known to say questionable things about minorities. When he discovered my husband and I were dating, he went online, matched with a black woman, slept with her, and messaged my husband that he slept with me. Years ago, he got into an altercation with my husband's former Indian roommate and brandished his gun to show him what they do to people like him in this country. The straw that broke the camel's back was two. 3 years ago, my husband and I were invited to a wedding. When his friend discovered I would be joining, he kicked us out of our shared lodging. My husband paid our share and said he could not share accommodation with me. I informed my husband then that from this point moving forward, this friend would never be a part of my life nor our life together. My husband agreed. He kept us apart but maintained the friendship. My husband and I recently got married. The friend was not invited to the wedding. The friend fears that he may lose the friendship and would like to apologize for his previous behavior. I do not care for it. But my husband believes that is selfish and that I should consider how this impacts his friendship with his broader friendship group. Question: am I being selfish? Should I accept to meet the friend, accept the apology, and move on? Am I being too sensitive? What are your thoughts? To add, thank you all for sharing your thoughts. Please keep them coming. I appreciate this community. For so long, I thought I was being overly sensitive on this matter. I will share your thoughts and comments with him, and hopefully provide an update with his perspective. Now for my husband's perspective. My husband has read the comments, and his response is, it's been 2 years. He is willing to apologize for his behavior. If no one believes in forgiveness, no one can be redeemed. As wrong as it is, people can change. He is willing to apologize and swear that nothing like this will ever happen again. No one is perfect, but if someone is willing to change and apologize for past behavior, they should be allowed to do so. I am not a discriminatory. I love my wife. I have a long history of friendship with this guy, and he is connected to a broader group of my friends. It is not as simple to walk away from that friendship without it impacting the others. He is willing to apologize and change. Almost forgot. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and opinions. We will go through the comments later to debrief. To answer a few questions, I married my husband because I love him. He is kind, intelligent, humorous, attractive, adventurous, easygoing, etc. His defaults are, he is a people pleaser, insecure, and lacks emotional intelligence. There is so much more to this story that it's TLDR. Is my husband a discriminatory? No. Does he have the backbone to stand up for himself and for myself included? No. He's never been a confrontational person. Believe me, this has been a pain point for me. But I stack it against his many pros and found that the pros outweighed the cons. In regard to our future, we've long agreed that this friend does not and will not have access to me or our future children, and he is not allowed and will never be allowed in our home. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Hun, I am really sorry to say this, but the friend isn't the problem here. Psycho friend pointed a weapon at your husband's roomie and threatened to unalive him because he's brown. Psycho friend refused to share a roof with you and threw you both out before his wedding. What did your husband do? Was he a decent man who stood up for you or his Indian roomie? Was he disgusted with his friend and end the friendship? Or did he make excuses, say, we can all have different values and opinions, but he's my friend? Or some cop-out bullcrap? Seriously, what kind of pathetic worm not only maintains a friendship with a man who's outright said he will unalive a brown man for the crime of being brown in our country, but is now trying to force you to be his friend? Something nefarious is at foot here. I wouldn't trust Psycho friend within 50 yards of me, and I do not trust your husband. Psycho friend might be a monster, but your husband does not sound like a good man, partner, or friend. Comment 2. Your husband's friend pulled a gun on someone for being brown, and he's still friends with them. Might as well forgive the discriminatory friend if you're going to be married to a discriminatory. If not talking to a discriminatory impacts his friend group, sounds like he's friends with a lot of racists. Now, for the update. Thank you all for reading the last post and sharing your thoughts. 3 months have passed since I last updated you, and a lot has happened. After much back and forth, I agreed to meet my husband's friend for a sit-down. It wasn't an easy decision, but I wanted to support my husband and see if this apology was genuine. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe downtown. My husband was there, of course, to mediate. The friend started by apologizing for his past behavior. He admitted that his actions were wrong and that he had been ignorant and insensitive. He said he had been doing a lot of self-reflection and had even attended some diversity and inclusion workshops. He seemed sincere, but I was still skeptical. I told him that while I appreciated the apology, trust is something that has to be earned over time. After the meeting, my husband was relieved. He felt that this was a step in the right direction and hoped it would help mend the broader friendship group. I, on the other hand, was still cautious. I needed to see consistent change before I could even think about forgiving him. A few weeks later, my husband and I attended a gathering with his broader friendship group. The friend was there, and I could tell he was making an effort to be more inclusive and respectful. He even went out of his way to engage in conversations with me, asking about my interests and trying to find common ground. It was awkward at first, but I could see he was trying. However, things took a turn when another friend in the group made an offhand discriminatory joke. The friend who had apologized immediately called him out, saying that such jokes were not acceptable. This was a pivotal moment for me. It showed that he was not just paying lip service, but was actually willing to stand up against racism, even among his friends. Despite this progress, there were still consequences to deal with. Some members of the friendship group were not happy about the changes. They felt that the friend who had apologized was being too politically correct, and that it was ruining the fun. This caused a rift in the group, and some people distanced themselves. My husband was caught in the middle, trying to maintain his friendships while also supporting me. During this time, I learned more about the friend's background. He grew up in a small, predominantly white town where he was never exposed to much diversity. His parents held similar views, and he had never questioned them until recently. This didn't excuse his behavior, but it did help me understand where he was coming from. He admitted that meeting me and seeing my husband's love for me had been a wake-up call. He realized that his views were not just outdated, but harmful. One evening, my husband and I had a long conversation about everything that had happened. He admitted that he had been afraid of losing his friends and that this fear had sometimes made him hesitant to stand up for me. He promised to do better and to prioritize our relationship above all else. This was a significant moment for us, as it showed that he was willing to grow and change as well. As for the friend, he continued to make an effort. He invited us to a barbecue at his place, and while I was hesitant, I agreed to go. It was a small gathering, just a few close friends. He made sure to include foods that I liked and even asked for my input on the playlist. These small gestures showed that he was trying to make me feel welcome. Over time, I started to see that people can change if they are willing to put in the effort. The friend still has a long way to go, but he is on the right path. My husband and I have also grown closer through this experience. We've had many difficult conversations, but they have made our relationship stronger. Looking back, I realized that this was a risk that could have gone either way. If the friend had not been sincere, it could have caused even more tension in our marriage and among the broader friendship group. But taking this risk has led to positive changes. The friend is making an effort to be more inclusive. My husband is more willing to stand up for me, and our relationship is stronger for it. Thank you all for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.